Hello. A new show season is upon us, and I have a few things I would like to get off my chest so that we can all have a pleasant experience this year. I realize that most of you have fancier horses, tack, and horse trailers than I do, but please do not assume that this means I want to sit in line waiting for you to unpack your fancy gear right in front of the entrance of the show barn. Yes, your horses are lovely, but I would like to be able to drive my own horses and horse trailer into the parking lot to unload, as with the line of cars you have now created waiting to both come in and go out. Yes, I am sure that Precious cannot sit in his stall for 5 minutes without bedding in water, so we must all wait for you to do that as well, but perhaps next time you could unload your horses and gear in the parking lot like the rest of us. And when it is time to go home, it would also be nice if we didn't have to wait for you to pack up right at the entrance to the parking lot again, blocking all traffic from coming or going. I know Precious is an imported warm blood who can do pre-St. George, and we should all be grateful that you grace us with your presence, but my non-imported horse does not want to sit in the trailer in the hot sun any longer than she has to. If your horse is that athletic, I am sure it can handle being loaded in the parking lot like the rest of the horses. Then there is the fun of trying to warm up with you. You do not own the warm-up ring, and this is not the time to decide you need to run through your entire test. Some of the rest of us would also like to school, even though I am sure we look like lost causes to you. Looking up once in a while when you are warming up would also make it much easier to ride with you. And when it is muddy in the warm-up ring, passing right up close at a canter, splashing mud on other horses and riders, is perhaps a little unneeded. If you have to sabotage your competition in this manner, at least stick to the ones you are actually competing against. This year, I really hope I do not have to watch you jerk on your client's walk-trot horse's mouth before going into the ring. It is a walk-trot horse at a dressage show. No wonder it grinds its teeth the entire class. You should be so proud. Speaking of horses in the show ring, did you see the third-level rider last year who yelled at someone for grazing her horse well outside the ring during her test? By third level, shouldn't you be able to control your stallion even if there is a gelding grazing 20 meters away? Or am I just naive? Now if she had been mad at the kids riding their bikes, throwing rocks and yelling just behind the judge's booth, then I could understand her being upset. When the judge gets up mid-test to yell at your kids, it is a sign that maybe they shouldn't be at the show. I will admit you ride Precious very well, and seem to always have confident control of him. However, ground tying him in the middle of the cement barn alley to braid, and then placing your young toddler on board bareback so you don't have to hire a babysitter, seems like questionable parenting to me. I would feel very badly if my horse caused your horse to spook and injured your child. Or if a loose horse ran through the barn, or even if your horse just shook its body causing tiny child to be flung to the cement floor. I realize it is your child, but I do not want to think about the stupid risk you are taking with its life. And tomorrow, when the grandparents are out to look after the child, could you possibly tell them to keep the stroller away from the horses? Your horse may be used to strollers, but mine is not, and I would feel horrible if my horse kicked at the stroller because it came rolling up behind her in the hitching ring. There are well-marked pedestrian paths. And getting back to the subject of unsupervised children, the showgrounds are not a playground, the arena is not a sandbox, and the barn alley is not a rumpus room. Your child zooming up on their bicycle behind my horse while I walk to the show ring is not conducive to my well-being, and avoiding your child who is playing in the riding area is not always possible on my green horse who is spooking from the other child who is throwing rocks. Equally not fun is having to avoid your child's toys that are scattered about the narrow alley of the show barn. If I have to move bikes and toys out of my way to get to my horse's stall, do not be mad about where they end up. The same applies for tack, feed buckets and all the other stuff you feels is okay to scatter across the barn as you hurry to your class. And speaking of a messy alleyway, You obviously have a lot of money and clients judging by your fancy trailers and fancy tack boxes, so why is it you cannot afford to buy a tack stall and instead have to fill the barn alley with your stuff? If my horse happens to grab a bite of the hay that is left out and scatter it through your open tack box, don't blame me. I am too busy avoiding the horse heads that are poking out of open stalls with just a rope containing. Yes, I am sure Precious never bites. But my horse does not know that and should not have to walk down a crowded alley worried about being bitten. It would also be really nice if you could master the skill of tacking up in a tack stall or your horse's stall when the show is in full swing. Waiting for you to come move your horse over when I am trying to get to my class is a tad annoying. Particularly after the 4th time in one day. But at least your barn doesn't have oodles of dogs. All the loose dogs are bad enough, but even worse are the dogs tied to the front of a stall and left unattended. I do not want to have to step over and around dogs and leashes to get to my stall, and nor does my horse. Oh, and the comments you made about my friend on her Arab cross. You made it sound like Arabian is some kind of contagious disease. Don't worry. Your fancy warm bloods will not catch Arabian refinement just by being in the same ring. You obviously also completely missed that the rider on that horse is smiling. Unlike your riders on their fancy horses that look like they want to kill everything in their path. It must really be hard to then be beaten by the rider on the Arab cross. Maybe that is why they look so angry? But enough of my complaining. There are so many more people at the horse shows that are nice, kind and supportive. The stewards, the first aid folks, the show crew, the office staff, and of course the many nice people who come out to show and to watch. These are the people that make showing fun, and I can't wait to see them again this year.